Hello folks. In this video, I'm going to show you how I actually set up my dev machine on AWS. So actually, I'm currently on macOS, and I generally try to use a remote machine for my development because the things that I have to run a lot of things, and I don't want to use my Mac and overload it, and it's also running a lot of applications from Mac. So I just go ahead and use a remote developer machine to do my development. And usually Linux machines are actually pretty lightweight, and a new machine doesn't usually run much stuff. So I just install the things that I need and then go ahead with it. So I'm actually on the AWS console. So I'm going to go ahead and launch an instance. I usually use the Ubuntu, and I use the AMD 64-bit. You can also check out the ARM 64-bit. Um, and I use the HDD version. So if you sorry SSD version. So if you see solid state drive, and and I usually need a very big machine, so I go ahead with like 8 CPUs and 30 GB RAM. Uh, but your mileage may vary, and I need a public IP so that I can actually SSH into the machine from outside. I'm not going to choose anything else, and I'm going to be choosing say 100 GB and encrypt it. And then I don't need a tag. I will use an existing security group to allow access from any source with IPv4, any IPv4 address or IPv6 address, to port 22 for this machine. So, and I think I should be good to go. So I have an existing key that I have imported, an SSH keypad. I'm going to launch this. Awesome. So this is launched. I will get the IP address of this thing, and I'm going to copy this up. So now I can go to my Visual Studio Code, and here I'm going to actually set up the IP address, this IP address in my SSH config. Since it's a private thing, I'm not going to show you the SSH config. I'm going to switch to the browser for now, and let me change the SSH config in the background. Okay, awesome, I've done it. Now let's go to the terminal, and let me show you how this looks like. So SSH, and my SSH config has the host name for that as AWS. I'm just going to use that. So you can see the IP address over here. Um, and that's it. I'm inside the machine. So the thing to note is that I did this all manually, but you can also use AWS, APIs, application programming interface, HTTP APIs to, interact with it and create a machine, or even use, say AWS CLI, which is going to internally use the HTTP APIs of AWS. I did this manually through the web console, and I'm going to manually set this up. And for this, I have two scripts in my local. So one script is called the AWS local, which I run in my local. So I do this. Um, so you can see that it does a secure copy of my git config, which I named it as git config for AWS, so that this git config can be used in my AWS developer machine, Linux developer machine. So, and it also gets my public GitHub key, SSH key, which I use to interact with the, not the public key, the private key, but this is for the public GitHub. So I get that private key, and I store it here so that I can actually interact with the GitHub, repositories like pull repositories, push, and whatnot. Any repository that requires my identity and my login. And I also have configuration for SSH, and then some stuff for FZF to work. So FZF is a tool that I use, and then I also copy this script called AWS remote, which I have to run inside the AWS remote machine. So I'm going to clear this screen up and get into the machine. And here, so now you should see AWS remote. So I am going to run this, and I need to put in some passwords for the private key. And yeah, so I actually did a lot of manual steps. You can automate a lot of these. So if you go back to the Visual Studio Code, you can actually see that I have these local AWS script which I run in a local, which does the secure copy, and then I have this remote one which actually does a lot of things to set up my machine. So it has some environment variables, and then it uses SSH add to add the private keys that I have. It does git clone. It installs a lot of software that I need. So GitHub CLI, and then ripgrep, FZF, zip, and whatnot. And it also gets some aliases into my bash RC file, and then lots of installations basically. Finally, it installs Docker, and it's that's the last step. So if you go to the terminal, you should be able to see that it's done with the installation, and now I have a full environment. And you can actually see the CPU. It has like 8 CPUs, and it has 32 GB RAM. So LSMEM should show the same thing. So yeah, so that's how I set up my Linux developer machine on AWS. So it's a remote dev machine, and it's a Linux machine. Um, so you should be able to see a thing like this. So yeah, oops, I guess I'm not using the right options, but anyways, so it's an Ubuntu machine like I showed you, and so yeah, so that's how I do my setup, and I think people can actually use this method, or maybe a more automated method where they just simply run some script, and then it runs the AWS EC2 Elastic Compute Cloud instance, and then uh, you know runs all these scripts, or does something else to actually get all these installed. For example, use a Amazon machine image that already has all this pre-installed and things like that. And then finally, you just have to SSH. So everything happens in like one click, or like one press of a button, where you run a script, and then it takes care of everything, like configuring your local SSH config and whatnot. And finally, you just have to do SSH AWS, and then you're ready to go. So yep, that's all I wanted to show in this video. Thanks, and come back for more videos. Bye bye.